Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. His mouth was on my neck when he breathed my sister's name. Everything inside me jolted upright like someone had pulled a fire alarm. I pushed his chest hard with both hands and he slipped back. He blinked up at me once as if he had misheard himself. My heart slammed so fast I thought it would punch through my ribs. My name is Claire and I was 26 that night. People talk about red flags in relationships and pretend they notice them. I did not notice anything until my boyfriend whispered Megan against my skin. Even now the memory hits in flashes and my pulse jumps anyway. That was the moment the whole story started tearing open under me. "What did you just call me?" My voice came out tight and high, almost whistling through my teeth. He dragged the sheet over his hips like armor and stared at me. I watched his face and waited for confusion or some stupid joke or anything normal. Instead, his eyes went wide and wet and he looked almost cornered. "I swear I said, babe, I would never call you that." His hand lifted toward me, then dropped like he remembered I might flinch. I heard the name again in my head, slow and almost gentle in his voice. There was nothing gentle in the way my stomach twisted or how my fingers dug into the blanket. Lips do not make people look trapped, secrets do. Say her name again, this time on purpose. My throat burned and my skin felt too tight for my bones. He flinched like I had slapped him and his fingers clawed at his hair. I realized he was not scared of losing me, he was scared of what I already knew. That was the first tiny crack where real panic started seeping through everything. Later people would ask why I did not walk out that second. In the moment my brain did not feel brave, it felt stunned. You do not expect the person you trust to turn into a stranger in one breath. You expect an explanation that fixes everything and pushes the fear back down again. I still thought maybe there was a version of this where I was overreacting. It just slipped out, "Claire, I have been exhausted lately." He rubbed his face hard, dragging his palm down like he could erase what happened. "Work is insane and I am distracted and my head mixes things up." He piled excuse on excuse while my chest kept hammering against my ribs. None of those words sounded bigger than the fact he had pictured my sister. "You do not accidentally think about my family during sex, you just do not." I heard my voice shaking, but I kept pushing because I needed every piece. He looked at the wall instead of me and his jaw clenched hard. I watched his eyes flicker like he was choosing which version of the truth hurt less. That tiny pause told me there was more here than one tired mistake. I pulled the comforter around me and climbed off the mattress shaking. Standing up helped a little and I could breathe deeper, but the room still tilted. He stayed where he was, shoulders hunched like he might fold in half. I grabbed a t-shirt from the chair and yanked it over my head. Covering my body did nothing about the creeping feeling that my own home was unsafe. I walked out to the hallway without looking back, hoping distance would clear my head. His footsteps came after a beat, like he was approaching a wild animal. In the kitchen he reached for my wrist and I jerked away on instinct. "Do not touch me until I understand what just happened to us." The word "us" sounded wrong in my ears for the first time. "I am sorry, Claire, I swear I do not think about her like that." His voice cracked on the last words and he leaned against the counter for support. "Then why is her name the one that came out when you were inside me?" I watched the question hang there between us like smoke from something still burning. He did not move for a long second and my chest waited for impact. "Because my brain is messed up, that is the only answer I have." He finally looked straight at me and there was real fear now, not just guilt. Not fear of me yelling or leaving, fear of something uglier crawling into the light. I did not know it yet, but this was the first time he almost told the truth. The word almost would not leave me alone for weeks after that night. "I need space tonight, I need you in another room." The sentence surprised me because it sounded calmer than I felt inside. His shoulders sagged and he nodded once and walked past me toward the living room. No argument and no more excuses, just the soft drag of his footsteps fading away. That distance between us felt small then, and I had no idea how wide it would get. I lay awake on the bed that used to feel safe and counted each tiny sound in the apartment. The refrigerator hummed in the background, and a car door slammed outside. Much later, I heard his weight shift on the couch, and my whole body went tense again. I knew sleep would not come because questions kept pacing circles in my head. What scared me most was not that he said her name, it was knowing this slip was only the first layer. My knee buzzed on the nightstand before the alarm went off. I grabbed it fast and killed the sound with my thumb. On the couch in the living room, I heard a small shift. For a second, I forgot everything and almost called his name. Then last night snapped back and I pulled my hand away like it burned. I opened my messages and stared at a blank screen. No text from him yet, no apology waiting, nothing. The silence felt louder than any long speech he could have sent. I swung my legs out of bed and stood up too quickly. I decided I would move first this time, not wait for him. He was already awake when I reached the kitchen doorway. He sat hunched over, elbows on his knees, fingers laced tight. His eyes jumped to mine like he had been counting seconds. "Can we talk before you go?" His voice came out rough. I stayed near the doorway, like the floor between us was dangerous. "I am getting ready for work." My words sounded flat and steady, which shocked me. "We will talk when I am not one step from walking out." His jaw worked once and he nodded without arguing. The way he backed off told me he was more worried than he looked. He tried again anyway, softer this time, just above a whisper. "It was a stupid mistake and I hate myself for it." He rubbed his palm over his face until his skin went red. "I will explain everything later, I just need you to believe me." I reached for my bag on the chair and kept my eyes on the strap. "If there is an explanation, you can give it tonight." The words felt like a deal I was making with myself too. I walked past him to the door and he moved out of the way. No touch, no goodbye, just a small shaky breath behind me. I carried that sound with me down the stairs like extra weight. In the car, my hands shook on the steering wheel. I forced them still and pulled out onto the street anyway. Every red light felt like a test of how long I could stay inside my head. I kept replaying that one moment from the night before. The way his face changed when the wrong name slipped out. Halfway to the office, my phone lit up on the console. His name flashed with an incoming call that I ignored. Right after it hung up, a voicemail notification appeared. I let it sit there, a small icon I refused to touch. I wanted distance more than I wanted answers on that drive. At my desk, I went through motions on autopilot. Logged in, opened the first email, stared without reading. Words blended into each other, and none of them felt real. My mind kept jumping back home like it had elastic hooked there. I knew I would break down if anyone asked a direct question. Around mid-morning, my coworker leaned over the divider. "You look wiped, long night." I forced a quick half smile and reached for my water. Just could not sleep, too much on my mind. I kept my gaze on the bottle so she would not see the panic. On my break, I finally tapped the voicemail icon. His voice came through low, slower than usual, like he practiced. He called what happened to slip and begged me not to give up. Then he mentioned getting help, his words careful around that part. Hearing the word help made something cold settle behind my ribs. If he needed help, that meant this ran deeper than one moment. It meant there was a pattern I had never noticed. I found myself opening a new message to my sister. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard and did not move. I deleted the draft and locked the screen because I could not drag her into this yet. By lunch, my phone showed 3 short texts from him. "I love you. Please talk to me. I will do anything to fix this." I read them all and realized none of them actually answered why her name was there. I took my food to my car instead of the break room. Inside the quiet space, I pulled up his contact again. My thumb slipped, opening our last photo thread by accident. Right above it sat another chat window with his most recent messages. Under his name, the preview line showed my sister's name in the middle of a sentence. My chest tightened as I opened that conversation, expecting some secret thread. It was just our group chat from weeks before, nothing new. He had scrolled up recently though, the timestamp gave that away. He had been looking at old jokes from the 3 of us after last night. I could not tell if that made it better or more twisted. I closed the app and switched to social media without thinking. His profile came up and I tapped through his recent activity. Mostly normal stuff, work friends, random clips, usual scrolling. Then I saw one like on a photo from my sister's feed. The picture was from months ago, buried deep, and that small heart made my stomach drop. He had not just thought of her in our bed. He had gone back through her old posts recently and left a mark. Not a crime, not proof of anything alone, but not nothing either. My brain started lining up last night with that tiny digital fingerprint. A pattern was forming even if I did not know the full shape yet. On the way back inside I type a quick message to him. Why are you liking old photos on her page? I almost erased it and softened the words. Instead I hit send and shoved the phone in my pocket. The question felt like a match thrown into something already soaked in fuel. He answered during a dull afternoon meeting. I was scrolling half asleep and did not realize the date. Short, neat, almost professional, like a memo instead of a confession. No extra sentence, no follow-up, just that clean little excuse. I stared at it and knew he was trimming the truth. I texted back without overthinking. You have 24 hours to tell me everything or I am gone. My thumb shook after I hit send, but I did not take it back. He read it almost instantly, the read receipt popped up fast. No reply came and that silence felt louder than any argument. By the end of the day, I had made a decision. I would go straight home and let him talk first. If his story matched what my gut already knew, I would pack a bag. If it did not match, I would find out why. Either way, I was not staying in the dark another night. I sat in the parking lot for a minute before starting the engine. For the first time since we moved in together, I was afraid to walk through my own door. Not because of him physically, but because of what I might hear. The truth about someone you love does not always hurt in one clean slice. Sometimes it drags out and tears in stages, and I could feel the first new rip coming. I turned the key and the door opened before I finished pushing. He stood there in the entryway like he had been planted all afternoon. Hands empty, shoulders tight, eyes locked on mine without blinking. For a second, I wanted to step back into the hallway. He blocked just enough space that I had to decide whether to squeeze past him. Move. My voice came out low and rough, not loud. He shifted aside at once and I brushed past his arm. The contact made my skin crawl, even though it barely registered. I walked straight toward the bedroom like the conversation had already started. He followed but stayed near the door when I sat on the edge. I did not invite him closer, I wanted the distance. The silence stretched until it felt like a third person in the room. You have 24 hours, I reminded him, staring at his shoes. The way his throat worked told me he had rehearsed something. I am going to answer everything, he started and then stopped. He raked his hand through his hair once, then dropped his arm. I need you to let me finish, even if it sounds insane. The word insane hung between us, and I felt my jaw clench. I nodded once because I wanted to hear how far he would push this. You asked why I liked that old picture, he went on carefully. It was not random scrolling, I was checking something. My chest tightened because that sounded worse than his lazy excuse from earlier. Checking what? He looked up fast like he had hoped I would not force that part out. I was trying to see if I actually felt attracted to her. The sentence landed heavy, simple, almost clinical. He winced as soon as it left his mouth, like he tasted it late. I had this idea that if I saw her and felt nothing, that meant my head was just messing with me. He watched me like he expected me to explode. Instead of yelling, I focused on the word idea. So you used my sister's photos like some kind of test. My voice stayed steady, but my fingers dug into the blanket. I did not talk to her, I did not message, I just looked. He spread his hands a little, like that detail might earn him points. I took a slow breath because I needed the next question right. When you looked, what happened inside your head? He froze at that, like he had hoped I would stop at the behavior. His gaze slid past me to the wall and he swallowed hard. That tiny delay told me more than any speech he could have prepared. I got this jolt of panic first, he admitted with a strained exhale. Then my brain went straight to sex stuff, like a flash I did not invite. His fingers tapped his leg in quick bursts, like he was trying to beat the thought back down. It felt disgusting and wrong, and I closed the app right away. He looked back at me almost defiant, like shame alone should count as proof of innocence. I had to grip the mattress to keep from standing up and pacing. So you do have sexual thoughts about her? I wanted him to hear how blunt that sounded without his careful language. I have invasive images that I do not want, he shot back. He leaned forward as he said it, like the distinction mattered more than anything else. He drew a rough breath and kept going before I could interrupt. I read about this, about unwanted fantasies that latch onto people you care about. Apparently, he had spent nights searching terms instead of talking to me. It talked about obsessive loops, about your mind grabbing the worst possible subject and replaying it. He watched my face like I was a jury deciding between sickness and perversion. Did you talk to a professional or just random strangers online? I needed to know if any adult had ever looked him in the eye over this. His shoulders sagged a little, and that gave me the answer before he spoke. I booked a consultation once and canceled the morning of the appointment. He rubbed his wrist as he said it, almost like he could erase the no-show with his thumb. Why cancel? The question came out fast and sharp, no room for him to sidestep. I got terrified they would label me as dangerous and report me somewhere. He let out a bitter half-laugh that did not fit the room. So I convinced myself I could manage it alone and just not act on anything. The phrase "not act on anything" drilled into my ears. Has there ever been a time you were alone with her and felt tempted to do something? I heard my own heartbeat while I waited for his answer. No, he answered immediately, too quickly, without even a flicker of hesitation. He lifted his eyes then, steady for once, and that was the first thing that did not feel rehearsed. He shifted his weight and continued before I could decide whether to believe that. When we are all together, I stay busy, I keep moving, I avoid lingering near her. Short sentences like bullet points from a survival plan. I make sure you are between us at gatherings, I do not hug her longer than a second. He listed each controlling move like he had them memorized, and maybe he did. Hearing that made my stomach twist in a new way. So many normal moments suddenly did not look normal anymore. He had turned my family into a layout he could manage like a threat map. You realize you turned every visit into some private battle in your head. I felt a wave of anger rise that had nothing to do with jealousy. He nodded once, jaw tight, eyes shiny but focused. I know, and I hate that I let it get this far. His voice dropped, almost a whisper, and he stared at the floor again. I thought if I could just prove to myself I would never cross a line, then I did not need to drag you into this. Hearing the phrase "drag you into this" made something in me snap. You were not protecting me, you were protecting your image. My tone finally rose, all the held-back volume pushing out at once. You wanted to keep being the good boyfriend while running your own twisted experiment backstage. He flinched like each word smacked him across the face. For you this is theory, for me this is my actual sister. He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again with a rough inhale. I know you think I am hiding more, and you are right. That sentence knocked the air out of me for a second. He scrubbed his hands over his face, buying time that he no longer had. There are nights when those thoughts show up when we are together, and that is what terrifies me most. The room seemed to tilt at that confession. You mean while we were having sex? The word felt heavy and ugly, but I forced it out. He nodded once without speaking, eyes squeezed shut like even acknowledging it hurt. I suddenly felt like our bed was contaminated by something I had never consented to. When that happens, what do? I needed details now, not vague guilt. I force my mind to switch images, I focus on you, I count or repeat words, anything to push it away. He leaned back against the wall as if he needed support to stay upright. Most of the time it fades fast, last night it broke through and slipped out. There it was again, that word slip that he liked using. Stop calling it a slip, call it what it is. His eyes flew open and met mine, wide and raw. It was a moment where the thing I am most ashamed of leaked into real life, and I panicked. The honesty in that line almost landed as relief, and that scared me. I realized I was breathing hard and forced myself to slow down. Here is what is going to happen tonight. Laying out terms gave me something solid to stand on. You are going to schedule an actual therapist and show me the confirmation. I watched his face as that sank in, waiting to see if he would fight it. He hesitated just a flicker, then reached for his phone. His fingers shook while he unlocked it and opened the browser. I did not look away while he searched for a provider and clicked through forms. When the confirmation screen appeared, he turned the screen toward me. An appointment 1 week out stared back at both of us like a verdict. "That is step 1, I said, my voice calmer now but still hard. "Step 2, you do not interact with her one-on-one until I say otherwise." He frowned at that, like the thought of that boundary hit differently. "If she texts you, you answer in the group chat with me included." He opened his mouth to argue and then shut it when he saw my expression. I do not want to make her uncomfortable by suddenly being distant. He shifted his feet, clearly torn between his image and my demand. "You already made her part of something sick without her consent." The words came out sharper and I expected, and I did not pull them back. If anyone gets to decide how awkward things are now, it is me. He stared at me for a long moment and then nodded slowly. "Okay, I will follow whatever rules you set." That quick surrender would have reassured me a year earlier. Now it made me wonder what he still hoped to keep buried. People agree fastest when they think it will keep their worst part hidden. "Last thing," I added, because the idea had formed while he talked. "You are going to write down every detail of when this started and how often it happens." His head jerked slightly, like I had slapped him with homework. "I want a timeline, specific, no editing to make yourself look better." He swallowed and nodded again, but his eyes looked like a trapped animal's. Later, that request would be the thing that cornered him. At that moment, it just felt like a way to get everything out of his head. He sat on the chair near the dresser and stared at his hands. "I will start tonight," he murmured, barely audible. That promise planted a seed that would blow everything open once I read what he actually wrote. His pen scraped the page in short bursts while I lay awake. I watched his back from the bed, muscles bunched, head bent low. Every few seconds he paused, fingers pressing his temples like he needed relief. That notebook in his lap was supposed to hold everything he had never admitted. Listening to him write about us felt more invasive than any search history. "How far did you get?" My voice broke the quiet before I could talk myself out of it. He glanced over his shoulder, eyes rimmed with exhaustion I had not seen before. "Just starting the early stuff, it is ugly." He shut the cover halfway, as if the words might leak out. "Keep going." I shifted against the pillow but did not move closer. "If you stop halfway, it is just another half-truth." He opened the notebook again, jaw tight, pen poised above the paper. I could feel him wrestling with every sentence he forced onto the page. Time stretched strangely while he kept filling lines. I scrolled through my phone without absorbing anything I saw. Every tap from his pen hit my nerves like a tiny hammer. I pictured him ranking the worst moments and deciding what to soften. That thought made my stomach knot harder than anything he had actually confessed. After a while, he stood up and rolled his shoulders out. "I need a break, my hand is cramping." He placed the notebook on the dresser, almost reverent, then rubbed his wrist. "I am going to grab something from the store, clear my head." The casual, errand tone clashed with the bomb he had just left on the furniture. "You are leaving that here." I nodded toward the notebook instead of reaching for it. "Yeah, you asked for it, I'm doing it." He hesitated, eyes flicking from the notebook to my face. "Please do not read it yet, I want to finish before you go through it." That request lodged in my throat like a dare. "You are asking for trust from the person you broke." I sat up, blankets pooling, limbs charged with restless energy. "I am asking for one night," he answered, voice rough, shoulders slumping. He stepped toward the door before I could decide whether that was generous or manipulative. When the door closed behind him, the silence felt heavier than before. The notebook sat there plain, without any lock or password. I stared at it so long my eyes started to sting. My body leaned forward before my mind agreed, then I forced myself back. If I opened it now, he could claim I never gave him the chance to be honest. I left the bedroom and paced the hallway to bleed off adrenaline. Every few steps I checked the time, counting the minutes he was gone. I half expected my sister's name to light up my phone, like the universe pushing me. Nothing appeared, just old notifications I ignored. It felt like the whole world had stepped back and left me with his secret homework. He returned quicker than I expected, keys jangling, footsteps careful. I went back to the bed and pretended to be absorbed in my screen. He set a bottle of water on the nightstand and avoided my eyes. I am going to write a little longer, then sleep on the couch. His voice carried that mix of dread and determination that always shows up before a confession. He wrote again, slower now, like every sentence cost him. I watched the way his shoulders dipped lower with each line. At one point he paused, staring at a page without moving the pen. Whatever memory he hit there, it pinned him in place. He finally scribbled fast, like ripping tape off skin. When he finally closed the notebook for real, his hands were shaking. I will work more tomorrow. He tucked it under a folded shirt in the dresser, not exactly hidden. Then he grabbed a pillow and left the room without another word. The soft click of the door felt like the end of some old version of us. I lay there in the dark replaying the day, but new questions kept forming. If he only wrote what age he thought I could handle, that timeline would still be edited. If he left out one crucial piece, I would build my choices on a lie. The idea of that scared me more than his worst confession. Trusting his version meant betting my sister's safety on his filter. Sleep came in short bursts and jittery snaps. I woke up twice convinced I heard him moving near the dresser. Each time the apartment stayed quiet, his shape barely visible on the couch. The third time I woke, dawn still far off, my mind felt clear in a brutal way. I decided I would rather deal with messy truth than polished self-reporting. I slipped out of bed and stepped into the hallway, bare feet silent. He was knocked out in the living room, mouth slightly open, arm over his face. That sight would have been endearing at some point, now it just looked careless. He had dropped the remote on the floor, proof he had passed out suddenly. I watched his chest rise and fall once, making sure he was fully out. Back in the bedroom, I opened the dresser and lifted the folded shirt. The notebook sat underneath, no lock, no mark on the cover. My fingertips hovered over it for a long moment. If I read it, there was no going back to not knowing. I grabbed it anyway because I was already living with something I could not unknow. I perched on the edge of the bed and opened to the first filled page. His handwriting looked cramped, almost angry, words pushed close together. At the top he had written a date from months before we moved in. Underneath, a line that made my stomach drop so fast my breath stuttered. First time I noticed her body, told myself it was just curiosity. I kept reading even though every part of me wanted to slam it shut. Next entry, another date, a short description of a dream. He described standing between us at a family gathering while both of us leaned on him. He wrote that he woke up aroused and nauseous at the same time. He underlined nauseous twice, like he wanted to make sure I saw the self-disgust. Further down the page, another confession. Started avoiding eye contact with her, scared the fantasies will latch on. The word fantasies made the room tilt again. He noted specific events, dinners, visits, every time his mind went off script. Each mention of her name sat there like its own little stain. The next section hurt even more. Looked at her pictures before we saw her today, hoping repetition would dull the reaction. So the old likes were not accidents or sleepy scrolling. He had turned my sister's feed into some twisted exposure routine. He had written it plainly, no excuses, like he was cataloging a symptom. I flipped to the last page he had filled. Near the bottom, the entry from the night before glared up at me. During sex tonight, image of her face dropped in again. He crossed out the next words so hard the paper almost tore. Under the scratch marks he rewrote, name escaped out loud, she heard everything. Seeing our worst moment reduced to one line punched something deep in me. It felt like he had summarized a house fire as minor heat issue. But the sentence right after shifted everything further. Part of me relieved the secret finally broke, part terrified she will tell her. He had not written my sister's name in that sentence, but the meaning was clear. A few lines lower, one more detail I had not known. Drafted a message to her last year, never sent it, deleted instead. My heart hammered faster as I scanned the rest. No words, just an empty chat window with her handle glowing. He added, closed it after 5 minutes, hands shaking, ashamed I even opened it. I realized he had come closer to contacting her directly than he admitted. That attempt had not been part of his spoken story. He had withheld it face to face and only let it live here in ink. Reading it without his coaching stripped away the careful framing. The difference between what he said out loud and what he wrote felt like its own betrayal. My first impulse was to march into the living room and shake him awake. Force him to look at the page while I pointed to each line. Make him sit in every consequence instead of controlling the narrative. Instead, I snapped photos of the most damning parts with my phone. If things exploded later, I wanted proof that I was not imagining any of this. When I placed the notebook back under the shirt, my hands trembled. I tried to smooth everything exactly how I had found it. If he noticed a crease out of place, he would know I broke my promise. A part of me almost wanted him to figure it out just to end the strange performance. Another part wanted extra time to decide what to do with what I had learned. I slid under the covers again, eyes wide open, heart still racing. I could not unsee the entry about the unsent message. That single line proved this was not just random brain noise. He had hovered at the edge of contact, toe over the line. Lying in that bed, I realized the next step in this story might be mine, not high. As I stared at the ceiling, I heard a faint rustle from the hallway. Footsteps moved toward the bedroom, slow, hesitant, not like his usual stride. The door eased open a few inches, and his silhouette appeared. "You are awake," his voice floated in, rough from sleep. My phone with the fresh photos lay warm in my hand under the blanket. My thumb tightened around the phone under the blanket as the door opened wider. He hovered halfway into the room, hair messed up, face creased from the couch. "You are still up," his voice trailed off when he caught my expression. I pulled myself upright against the headboard, covers over my legs like a shield. He took one more step in, then stalled like he had hit an invisible line. "You were watching me sleep." I kept my tone even, not friendly, not kind. He shifted his weight, toes curling against the floor like he needed grip. "I woke up and checked. I wanted to see if you were okay." His gaze dropped to my hands, and for a moment I thought he sensed the phone. "I am not okay." I let the words sit between us like a warning flare. "Did you finish writing the timeline?" He rubbed the back of his neck, eyes flicking toward the dresser. "Most of it, the worst parts are in there now." I let that hang for a heartbeat, then pushed. "Which worst parts? The dreams, the pictures, or the message you almost sent her?" His head snapped toward me so fast his jaw clenched on instinct. He stared at my face, searching for some way to deny it. The color drained from his cheeks before he even tried to talk. "You opened it." The words came out ragged, closer to a cough than a question. He glanced at the dresser again, then back at me, realization landing hard. "You told me you would wait. You promised you would give me time." I slid the phone from under the blanket and held it on my lap, not hiding anything now. "I promised before I knew you had opened a chat window with her name glowing on your screen." I tapped the display once, the photo of his handwriting clear on the glass. "This line right here, you left that out when you walked me through your big confession." He flinched at the sight of his own words reflected back. "I thought that detail would only hurt you more, and it did not change what I actually did." "It changes everything." My pulse thudded in my ears, but my voice stayed steady. "You did more than sit with thoughts inside your skull, you reached for her." I swung my legs over the edge of the bed and planted my feet. "You knew that window existed, you still looked me in the eye and edited it out." He stepped closer, palms open, pupils blown wide with panic. "I typed her handle one night, I stared at a blank line, I closed it without writing anything." Each sentence dropped quick, clipped, like he wanted to get them out fast. I swear there were no actual words sent, not even one. His chest rose faster now, almost matching my own labored breathing. I lifted the phone again, thumb sliding to the next photo. "This says you drafted something last year and deleted it, not just stared at an empty box." I turned the screen so the sentence stared back at him. "That means sentences existed, you just erased them before anyone else saw." His shoulders sagged as he recognized the line he had tried to bury on paper. He pinched the bridge of his nose, eyes squeezed shut like bright light hit him. "I wrote a paragraph in my notes first, I never even pasted it into the chat, I wiped the whole thing that same night." He opened his eyes slowly, watching for my reaction. It was a spiral. I was testing myself, seeing how far I would go. I scared myself and pulled back. He let his arms drop, fingers loose, as if he had run out of ways to shield himself. "What did you write?" My question cut through the space between us, cold and direct. He froze like his brain hit a locked door. I do not remember the exact phrasing. I raised an eyebrow and he rushed to fill the silence. It was something like, "I think about you too much and I hate that." His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. I never wrote anything graphic, nothing flirtatious. It was more confession than flirting. He dragged a hand down his face, leaving a red streak. I deleted it because I realized even typing it was crossing a line in my head. You do not get a medal for stopping at the last second. I stood up, phone still in my grip, the distance between us shrinking and burning at the same time. You had already crossed a line when you let yourself write her name in that context. He looked down at his feet, then back to me, shame and stubbornness tangled together. For you that is her, for me it was the worst possible target my anxiety could pick. I laughed once, sharp and humorless, and it startled both of us. You keep trying to turn this into a story about anxiety and not about what you clearly felt. He flinched at the word felt, as if it accused him more than anything else. Fine, then I will say it in the most disgusting way. He took a breath that shook, then forced the next sentence out. There were moments I was aroused while thinking of her, and I hated myself for it. The room swayed slightly, and I tightened my grip on the nightstand to ground myself. I knew the answer had always been yes, but hearing it aloud still knocked something loose. So you have gotten off picturing my sister before. My voice sounded distant to my own ears, like it came from another person. He hesitated half a second, enough to tell me everything. Once, he whispered, then corrected himself, twice if I am counting precisely. His gaze darted away, unable to hold mine. It was months apart, both times I felt sick afterward. I swore I would never let it happen again. He clenched his fists at his sides, knuckles pale, like he wanted to punch himself. I stepped back until the mattress hit the back of my legs. Hearing the number made my skin feel too tight. You stood in my parents' house after that, you hugged her hello, you kissed me in the kitchen like everything was normal. Images stacked in my mind now in a new order. I was living in a completely different version of reality than you were. He took a small step nearer, not quite brave enough to reach for me. I compartmentalized, that is the only way I can describe it. He stared at a spot near my shoulder, not directly at my face. There was my life with you, which I wanted, and there was the intrusive filth my mind spit out, which I tried to confine. His voice trembled on the last word, like the box had already cracked. Intrusive or not, you built routines around it. I angled the phone screen up again, then locked it and set it down, needing my hands free. You checked her feed before gatherings, you positioned yourself in rooms, you rehearsed messages. Each item hit him like a small shove. You cannot keep pretending you were only a passive victim inside your own skull. I know I participated, that is why I am agreeing to therapy now. He nodded toward the dresser where the notebook hid again, like it was proof of effort. I am not arguing that what I did is harmless, I am telling you I never planned to drag her into it in real life. His eyes were wet now, but I did not see regret the same way anymore, I saw fear. Fear of losing control over how this story would be told outside this room. I crossed my arms, feeling goosebumps ripple along my forearms. You are still trying to keep her out of it. He looked confused for a second, then realization dawned. You have not told her yet. There it was, the real terror under everything he had said so far. Not yet. I let those two words land with their full weight. I have been protecting her from this nightmare while living inside it for days. My throat tightened, but I forced myself to keep going. And I am realizing that keeping quiet might help you more than it helps her. He shook his head, almost frantic now. If you tell her, it will destroy her relationship with you, it will wreck every family event, it will stain how she remembers everything from the last few years. His hands lifted, palms up, pleading without touching me. I am sick, I am getting help, you blowing it up with her will not make anyone safer, it will just spread the trauma. He was arguing hard now, not about losing me, but about containing the blast radius. Yo. You do not get to frame this as me detonating something. You already did that when you brought her into your fantasies. My words came faster now, anger finally outracing numbness. You put her in danger without ever giving her the chance to consent or step back. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat, thick and hot. And you are still asking me to let her walk blind through rooms you turned into landmines. He stared at me, breathing hard, then sank onto the chair like his legs gave out. If you tell her, she might never feel safe around any guy again. He dragged his fingers through his hair until it stood up in clumps. She will look back at every hug, every joke, and see something ugly that was never there for her before. He looked up, voice cracking. You could protect her from that. That twisted logic almost hooked me, and that scared me more than anything. Protect her from knowing the truth by keeping her in the dark. Protect her from feeling violated by never telling her her boundaries were crossed in his head. That protection felt a lot like silence I would be expected to maintain forever. Silence that would fuse me to his secret in a way I did not want. I am not your accomplice. My voice dropped level and cold. If I keep this from her long term, that is exactly what I become. I pressed my palm against my sternum, grounding myself. I am already carrying your problem. I refuse to also become the person who lied to her face later. He slumped forward, elbows on his knees, eyes shut again. So what then? You call her tomorrow, you unload everything, you let her try to process that her sibling's boyfriend used her body in his head. He shook his head slowly. She will stop trusting you for not warning her sooner. She will stop trusting me for obvious reasons. Your parents will get dragged in. It will be chaos. He was painting me a disaster map and daring me to step onto it. Maybe chaos is honest. The phrase slipped out before I could refine it. Right now everything looks tidy on the surface, and underneath it is rotting. I pictured holidays where we all sat around acting fine while this sat between us like invisible mold. At least if I tell her, the sickness is out in the open and she gets a say. He glanced toward the doorway like he expected her to walk in right then. What if she cuts you off because she cannot stand to remember any of this? He gave me a long look, voice hoarse. You are willing to risk losing her forever over something that never reached her outside my head. His words were a knife wrapped in concern, and I could feel the slice. I might lose her either way. I took a breath, then another. If I keep quiet and she finds out later, I knew that is it. I pictured her face when she realized I had stood in rooms with both of them, hiding the whole thing. I would rather risk losing her while being honest than lose her because I protected your image. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling, tears sliding sideways into his hairline. I am going to lose you either way, huh? For the first time that night, he sounded less like he was bargaining and more like he was bracing. You are already gone in your head, you are just waiting to make it official. He dropped his gaze back to me, and for once did not argue his own value. I let the quiet stretch, then nodded once. I do not see a version where I stay with you and sleep peacefully again. My eyes stung, but I did not let the tears fall yet. Even if therapy helps you, I will always wonder what you are not telling me, or what you are trying not to think about while we touch. That realization hurt in a new way, like mourning a life that had not happened yet. He sat there absorbing it, then spoke in a low, steady tone. If you are done with me, let me carry this and let her stay untouched. He took a breath, slow and deliberate. I will end things, move out, get treatment, never see her again, never come around your family. You can tell everyone I cheated in some normal way if you want. He met my eyes with something like fatal acceptance. The offer sounded almost noble on the surface. Take the blame, disappear, let everyone hate him for a smaller sin. I could say he hooked up with someone from work, roll their eyes, move on. No one would have to know the real reason. My skin crawled when I heard his voice. No one but me, living with the knowledge that I let him walk away without warning her. When I look at her, I want to know I chose her side completely. My voice shook then, finally betraying the strain. Not halfway, not just enough to feel like a good partner, fully. I wiped under one eye with my knuckle, annoyed at the wetness. That means she gets the truth, even if she hates me afterward. He watched me carefully, as if memorizing the moment I picked a direction. If you tell her, I would like to at least be there to answer questions, to explain that I never touched her, that this was my disorder, not some secret plan. He swallowed hard. But I know I do not get to ask for that. I have lost that privilege. He looked older somehow in that instant, like the shame aged him. I do not know yet how I will tell her. I grabbed my phone again, the weight of it suddenly immense. Call, text, in person, whatever I do will break something we cannot glue back together. I stared at the home screen, her name sitting near the top. But I am leaning away from lies, and that should scare you. He stood up slowly as if every joint hurt and reached for the doorframe. I will start figuring out where I can go temporarily. He did not look at me when he said it. You keep the place for now, I will crash somewhere else until we decide what happens with the lease. His hand braced against the wall, like he needed support to stay upright. You are not driving anywhere tonight. I surprised myself with that command. He turned back, brow furrowed. You are exhausted, jittery, your head is a mess. I am not letting you get in a car like this and wrap yourself around a guardrail. I crossed my arms tighter, forcing firmness into my posture. So I sleep on the couch again, and you lie here planning how to ruin my life by telling the person I fixated on. The bitterness slipped through before he choked it back. He pressed his lips together, regretting the phrasing instantly. Sorry, that sounded awful. I know I did this, not you. He stepped back into the room, as if he had remembered the line he crossed. You did ruin your own life. I did not soften it. You also detonated mine in the process, and now you are worried about fallout with her. I shook my head, disbelief mixing with fatigue. I am done carrying your priority list like it is mine. The words gave me a strange calm, like clicking a seatbelt before impact. My phone buzzed in my hand, making both of us jump. Her name lit up the screen with a new message. Hey, random, but are you free to talk tomorrow? Something weird has been bothering me about him. My stomach lurched, not with surprise this time, but with a recognition that the story was already bleeding into her world. I looked from the message to him, and for the first time that night, he looked genuinely clueless and terrified at the same time. I tilted the screen so his name and my sister's text were visible. He stepped closer automatically, then stopped when he saw who it was from. The muscles along his jaw jumped while he read the preview line. Something weird has been bothering me about him, he repeated under his breath. For a second we just stared at each other, both of us realizing the clock had started. What did you do when I was not around? The question tore out of me before I even opened the message. His head shook fast, hands up like he was warding off a blow. Nothing new, I swear. I have barely been near her lately. I have not messaged, I have not called. The way he listed defenses told me he was running through possibilities anyway. I unlocked the phone and opened the thread. She had sent just that one line and a little bubble waiting. I typed back with my thumbs hovering for only a heartbeat. Yes, I am free tomorrow. We should definitely talk. I hit send before fear could reach my fingers. I watched the delivered checkmark appear and stay there. No dots yet, no reply from her side, just that fixed sentence. He raked a hand through his hair, pacing a tight line at the foot of the bed. Please tell me what you are going to say to her. His voice thinned in the middle, like it could not carry the weight of his own request. I will answer whatever she asks, I will not soften it for you. I placed the phone on the nightstand face down, screen dark. She reached out on her own, something already feels off to her. He stopped pacing and gripped the bed frame with both hands. You can tell her I had inappropriate thoughts without describing the part where I used her body during sex. I actually laughed short and sharp because of how desperate that sounded. You think I am going to protect your comfort level in this? He winced, shoulders rising toward his ears. I am asking you to protect her from images she can never unsee, not me. He looked like he believed that, which somehow made it more twisted. If she wants details, she gets them from me, not from you trying to sanitize your own guilt. My heart thudded, but my words came out clean. Tomorrow is about her safety and my sanity, not your version of damage control. He let go of the bed frame and backed up a step. Please at least let me know when you are talking to her so I can be somewhere I cannot do anything stupid. Stupid like what? I narrowed my eyes, watching his face for any hint of a threat. I am not going to hurt myself. I am not making that kind of dramatic threat. He held my gaze, breathing unevenly. But hearing that she knows might push me to do something reckless if I am alone and blindsided. I thought about it for a second, then nodded on. Say, I will text you when I meet her, nothing more. That was as much as I was willing to offer. You will already be gone by then anyway. His brows drew together, realizing I meant more than just leaving the room. Tomorrow. He sounded stunned, like he had hoped for a slow fade. Yes, you pack what you can in the morning and you leave the key on the counter. I said it quietly, but there was no space in it for argument. If anything gets left behind, I will drop it somewhere neutral. You will not come back here. He sat down heavily on the chair without pulling it out. I thought I had a week before we decided that. I shook my head, feeling a strange steadiness settle over me. You had months of chances to be honest. That clock is over. He nodded slowly, the fight draining out of his face as the new timeline took shape. My phone buzzed again, both of us jumping like someone fired a gun. Her reply popped up on the lock screen in 2 segments. Okay, can we grab coffee near your work? I keep thinking about how he acted at that last family thing. My lungs forgot how to move for a second. She had noticed something even before I knew there was a problem. He leaned forward, eyes locked on the message I was already reading. She noticed at the last gathering. His voice faded and he covered his mouth with his hand. What did I do, Claire? What did she see? Hearing my name from him again made my stomach twist. You tell me. I picked up the phone, then set it back down again, needing both hands free. Run through every moment you can remember from that day. He shut his eyes like he was rewinding footage only he could see. I kept my distance. I remember that. I stayed near your dad most of the time. I barely spoke to her. Think harder. I cut across his rambling, pushing. Anything odd, any comment, any look that went on too long. He opened his eyes again, unfocused. There was one time in the hallway when we crossed paths and I froze for a second. Maybe I stared, maybe I looked terrified, I do not know. I clenched my fists, imagining my sister clocking that weird moment and filing it away. Whatever she saw, it bothered her enough that she wants to talk to me privately. That meant this had been building for longer than I knew. I am not going to gaslight her about her own instincts the way you gaslighted mine. His head dropped at that word, knowing exactly when he had tried to smooth everything over. I never meant to make you think you were crazy. He spoke softly, the edges worn down. I was trying to drag myself back to normal and took you with me. He blew out a slow breath, a broken sound. You trusted me with your body. I turned our bed into a fight you did not sign up for. Silence stretched between us, heavy and weirdly calm. I am getting a shower. You figure out where you are sleeping tonight. I stood up and walked past him without touching anything. I needed hot water and a closed door before I started planning every word for the next day. Behind me, I heard him sink further into the chair, like something inside him collapsed. Under the spray later, my brain kept staging conversations. One version where I blurted everything at once and watched her crumple. Another where I eased in and risked her thinking I was exaggerating. Every scenario ended with her face changing and our dynamic cracking. There was no version where we walked away with that old easy trust untouched. When I came back out, he was already stretched on the couch again. He had one forearm over his eyes, chest rising shallow and fast. Without looking up, he spoke into the ceiling. I will call the therapist office first thing to confirm I am still coming. He sounded like a person reciting instructions in case of fire. You going to that appointment is the bare minimum, not a favor to me. I crossed the room to grab extra blankets, not offering him one. If you cancel, I am forwarding all the screenshots to her and maybe to someone professional. He moved his arm enough to see me, nodding once. I am done running from this, even if I lose every relationship over it. Sleep came in scraps that night, jittery and thin. Every time I drifted off, my mind snapped back to her text. By the time my alarm went off, my stomach was already in knots. I checked my phone and saw no new messages from her. At least she had not backed out, which meant the talk was still coming. He was already up, stuffing clothes into a bag without folding. He did not glance in my direction when I stepped into the hallway. A small pile of toiletries sat on the counter, the only sign he had thought ahead. I will clear out the rest later with someone there. I do not want you alone with me while I pack everything. That small concession told me he finally understood the level of damage he had done. I walked to the kitchen, poured coffee, ignored the way my hands shook. He set his key near the sink with a soft clack. I will text you when I reach my friend's PL. So you know I got there. He looped the bag strap over his shoulder, shoulders slumping. After that, I will not contact you unless you ask for something. You can send one message after the therapist appointment to confirm you went. I kept my eyes on the mug, not his face. After that, anything you say to me goes through email only, no late-night texts, no calls. He nodded, even though I was not looking. I understand. I lost the right to treat you like my emergency contact. The door closed behind him a minute later, and the apartment dropped into a strange kind of quiet. No footsteps, no cough, no rustle of someone else moving around. It felt like every sound had been sucked out, leaving only my pulse. I checked the time, calculated how long until I met her. Every minute between now and then felt like a countdown I could not pause. At lunch, I walked into the small cafe near my office with my nerves buzzing. She was already there at a corner table, fingers wrapped around her cup. When she saw me, her mouth lifted for a second, then dropped again. That tiny falter told me she was scared of what she was about to say. It also told me she had already decided to trust me with it. Thanks for coming. Her voice was soft, tighter than usual. I sat down across from her and forced myself not to stare. You sounded freaked out, so of course I came. My heart pounded so hard I had to steady my breathing before adding more. We looked at each other for a few beats, both stalling. She broke first, tapping a slow pattern on the table with one fingernail. I have been trying to talk myself out of this for weeks. Her eyes glistened, then she blinked the moisture away. I kept thinking I was being dramatic, but my chest would not let it go. A knot tightened under my ribs, but I nodded for her to continue. At that last family gathering, he was different. Her throat flexed, trying to find words. He barely said anything to me, but when I caught him looking, it was like he was furious or scared. I could not tell. She shivered slightly at the memory, and I felt my hands curl under the table. I tried to write it off as stress, or maybe he was mad at you for something. She gave a small, humorless laugh, one I recognized from my own mirror. But then I checked my page a few days later and saw he had liked some old post from years ago, one where I was in a swimsuit at the lake. The word hit the air like an accusation neither of us wanted to unpack. I told myself it was nothing, but my body kept going, no, this is off, this is wrong. My lungs forgot how to work for a beat. Of course, that was the picture he had engaged with. She had seen it and felt exactly what I had felt seeing the notification. You were not overreacting. My voice came out rougher than I intended, weighted with more than she knew yet. Her eyes searched my face as if checking whether I was humoring her. Did you ever feel weird about the way he was around me? That question sliced straight through me. I could have lied and said no, comfort her, keep things neat. Instead, I made myself hold her gaze and let the truth start climbing out. Not until very recently. I chose each word carefully, like stepping on thin ice. But once I did, everything I had missed started lining up. She went still, barely breathing, sensing where this was headed. Something happened a few nights ago that ripped the mask off all of it. What happened? The question was barely more than a breath. I took in air slowly, my hands damp against the sides of my cup. He said your name at the worst possible time, in the most intimate moment you can imagine. I watched the meaning hit her eyes like a wave, shock and disgust and fear all at once. Her lips parted, then closed, then parted again with no sound. No. One syllable, loaded with hope that I would say I was exaggerating. He told me it was a mistake, then I found proof it was not just that. I slid my phone from my pocket, screen locked for now, but its weight made my point. She pressed her knuckles against her mouth, breathing faster. Proof how? I forced myself not to rush. He has been having sexual thoughts involving you for longer than he told me, and he wrote them down because I forced him to. Her face drained of color, and for a moment I worried she would faint. Has he ever touched me in a way that was not okay when I was not paying attention? Her voice shook, but the question came out direct. I answered just as directly. No, he has not laid a hand on you beyond normal family stuff, and he has actually arranged situations to stay away once he realized what was happening inside his head. Her shoulders sagged a fraction with relief, but her eyes stayed hard. That does not make me feel better, it just makes me sick in a different way. She pushed her hair back, fingers trembling. He used me in his mind and then sat at birthdays like nothing was wrong. Her throat worked again, swallowing something heavy. I feel like my body was borrowed without permission, even if I never felt it. I know. Those two words carried more weight than anything else I could have said. It makes me want to crawl out of my own skin when I think about our bed now. I looked at the table for a second, then back at her. He booked a therapist after I found everything, but that is not my job anymore. You left him. It was not a question, and I did not make it one. Yes, he is packing his things right now. He will not be at any future family event. My chest tightened as I thought about our parents hearing whatever version came next. I will not bring someone into the same spaces as you when I know what his head does. Tears spilled down her cheeks then, finally breaking free. They are going to ask questions. They liked him. They thought you were solid. She wiped her face with the heel of her hand, angry at the wetness. What are you going to tell them? That was the next landmine I had already been stepping around in my mind. I have not decided yet how much to share. I spoke slowly, feeling out each phrase. Part of me wants to say he cheated in a regular way and leave it there. Another part thinks they should know why he is banned from gatherings. She watched me, absorbing both options. I am not making that call alone, not when this messed with your sense of safety more than anyone's. She sat with that for a long moment, staring past me. If you lie to them for me, you will be carrying this forever, almost completely alone. She let out a shaky breath. That is not fair to you. You are the one who had him in your bed while he was picturing someone else. She looked back at me, eyes clearer now even though they were still red. I want to tell them the truth, maybe not every graphic detail, but enough that they understand why he is gone for good. She nodded, once firm now. I would rather have awkward holidays than wonder if I am overreacting around my own family table. Her mouth twisted. And if they want to blame anyone, I would rather it be him than you or me. I finally unlocked my phone and opened the photos of his pages. I am going to show you some pieces of what he wrote, then I am erasing them from my phone. Her eyes widened, but she leaned in anyway. If you say stop, I stop. You get to control how much you see. She swallowed and nodded, jaw clenched, preparing herself. I scrolled to the line about the unsent message and turned the screen. She read the words slowly, lips moving without sound. Her fingers curled into fists on either side of the phone. He thought about sending that to me and then sat across from me at dinner with you like everything was fine. A quiet fury settled over her features, sharper than the earlier fear. Do you want to see more? I watched her carefully. She hesitated, then shook her head. No, I have enough to never question my instincts again. The rest is for his therapist to choke on. I exhaled silently, then hit delete on the image file while she watched. You are really deleting it? She sounded almost surprised. Yes, I already read every line. I do not need to haunt myself with the details forever. I cleared the trash folder too, making sure it was gone. If I need proof again, I still have my own memory and you have yours. She sat back, eyes closing briefly, then opened them with a new steadiness. So what happens now? The question hung over both of us. For you, you never have to see him again unless you choose to, which I doubt you will. I rubbed my thumb along the edge of the table, grounding myself. For me, I block his number after he confirms the appointment and pick up whatever pieces of my life I can. I caught her eye and forced a small smile that did not reach very far. I will be in therapy too, separate from him, because I need to understand why I kept dismissing little alarm bells until the disaster screamed at me. She reached across the table and gripped my hand so hard it almost hurt. If anyone has to be in a room unpacking this with a professional, it is not you alone. We sat like that for a while, fingers locked, cups cooling. When we finally stood, she hugged me tighter than she ever had before. "This is going to change everything with guys for me." Her voice muffled against my shoulder. "But I am glad I found out from you, not in some horrible way later when it was even worse." On the walk back to my office, I texted him just one line. I told her enough to keep her safe. Do not contact her in any way ever again. He replied after a few minutes. "Understood, appointment still on for Tuesday. I will email you with confirming details only." There were more words in that bubble he wanted to send, but I did not invite them. That night at my place, his side of the closet stood mostly empty. A few stray hangers, a forgotten sweatshirt on the shelf. I stacked the leftover items in a bag by the door. I felt like I was cleaning out a room after a fire, even if nothing was burned. The real wreckage was in my head and in hers, not in the furniture. Later, I called our parents and told them the more sanitized version. He has been dealing with severe sexual compulsions that made it unsafe for him to be around our family, especially around her. There was shocked silence, then a rush of questions I would not answer fully. We do not owe anyone the full script, we owe each other protection. That line came out of my mouth before I thought it through and stuck. They understood enough to support the boundary. No one pushed to invite him to anything, no one told me I was being too extreme. They were confused, disappointed, sad. But nobody tried to play mediator, and that mattered more than they knew. The family group chat stayed active, but his number disappeared from every thread overnight. A few days later, he sent an email with the therapist's letterhead attached. Short note at the top. Started weekly sessions. I am not asking for forgiveness, just letting you know I am following through. You do not need to respond. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I moved it to a folder labeled Records and left it unopened from that point on. Eventually, my sister and I figured out new rules. We shared locations when we went on dates, checked in with each other after first meetings. We had little phrases that meant "this feels off" and "this feels okay so far." It changed how we moved through the world, more alert, less trusting by default. It also pulled us closer than we had been since we were younger, which he would never get to see. When I think about him now, I do not picture his tearful apologies. I remember standing in that bedroom, phone in my hand, and choosing her side instead of protecting his shame. That choice sits like a line drawn across my life. Before, I kept giving people the benefit of the doubt even when my body whispered no. After, I started listening to that whisper, even when it meant burning down the future I thought I wanted. People online love to ask why someone stays with a partner after a line like that. Why I did not leave the second he spoke the wrong name. The honest answer is simple and ugly. You always think you are the person who would walk out instantly, right up until your whole life is built around the one who just shattered you. Then you find out what you are really willing to burn to keep your own mind and the people you love safe.